Imagine getting the email you've been waiting years to see. Your salary is now $100,000. 6 figures. For a moment, everything feels different. The long hours, the promotions, the years of becoming more valuable. Finally, you made it. And you expect something to change. You expect to feel secure, maybe even rich. But a few months later, you're still thinking about bills. Still checking your bank account. Still wondering whether you can handle an unexpected expense. And eventually, you ask the question that almost feels ridiculous. How am I making $100,000 and still not feel rich? The answer isn't necessarily that you're bad with money. The problem is much more subtle. Your income can rise without your financial freedom rising with it. And to understand why, let's follow someone named Alex. Alex starts his career making $50,000 a year. It's not a fortune, but his life is simple. A modest apartment, an older car, a few subscriptions, most meals at home. Nothing glamorous, but nothing demanding an enormous amount of money either. Then Alex gets promoted. His salary jumps to $70,000. Suddenly, the world feels different. He can afford a nicer apartment, so he moves. His old car still works, but a newer one doesn't seem unreasonable anymore. He starts eating out more. Weekend trips become easier to justify. A few subscriptions become a few more. And none of these decisions feels irresponsible. That's what makes this so easy to miss. Lifestyle inflation rarely announces itself. You don't wake up one morning and say, "Today, I'm going to make my life permanently more expensive." It happens through tiny upgrades. A slightly nicer home, a newer car, more convenience, more entertainment, more expensive weekends. Each decision feels small. Together, they completely change the financial life you're required to maintain. Then Alex gets another promotion. His salary crosses $100,000, 6 figures. The milestone he imagined would finally make him comfortable, but there's a problem. His lifestyle got promoted too. His apartment costs more. His car costs more. His habits cost more. And the things that once felt like luxuries now feel completely normal. That's the first trap. When your income rises, your definition of normal can rise with it, and something deeper is happening underneath. Your brain is incredibly good at adapting. Give someone a better lifestyle, and eventually the better lifestyle stops feeling better. It simply becomes their baseline. The new apartment becomes home. The newer car becomes normal. The expensive restaurant becomes the usual place. The vacation becomes something you expect every year. And suddenly, the extra income that once looked enormous has disappeared into a life that no longer feels extraordinary. That's why a higher salary doesn't automatically create a richer feeling. Because people don't experience income as a number. They experience it through the life that number can support. And this is where the $100,000 figure becomes misleading. When you hear $100,000 salary, your brain sees $100,000. But you don't actually get to spend $100,000. Taxes take a portion. Benefits and other deductions take a portion. Retirement contributions may take a portion. And then, real life begins. Housing, food, transportation, insurance, debt, family expenses. Everything required to keep your life running. So the number on your job offer and the amount that actually reaches your account can be very different. And that's why a 6-figure salary doesn't automatically create a 6-figure lifestyle. It depends on what that income has to support. Now imagine 2 people. Both earn exactly $100,000. Same salary, same headline number, but their financial lives look completely different. Why? Because income doesn't exist by itself. It exists inside a location, a tax system, a housing market, and, most importantly, a lifestyle. One person might live somewhere with relatively affordable housing. Their biggest monthly expense is manageable. Their commute is short. Their basic costs leave room for saving. Another person could earn the exact same salary in an expensive city. Higher rent, higher transportation costs, higher everyday expenses. And suddenly, much more of that same $100,000 disappears before they even start building wealth. Same salary, different reality. That's why saying, "I make 6 figures," doesn't tell the whole story. The better question is, how much of that income remains after maintaining my life? Because your salary isn't what determines your financial freedom. Your margin does. The space between what comes in and what your life requires. And housing can make that margin disappear surprisingly fast. A more expensive home isn't simply a larger monthly payment. It can mean higher utilities, higher maintenance, higher insurance, and sometimes a longer commute. A longer commute can mean more fuel, transportation costs, and lost time. And when time becomes scarce, People often pay for convenience, food delivery, prepared meals, services, anything that saves a few minutes. One expense creates another, not necessarily because someone is careless, but because their lifestyle has become expensive to maintain. And then comparison enters the picture. Humans rarely judge their financial lives in isolation. We look around. Maybe your coworker buys a new car. Your friend moves into a nicer neighborhood. Someone you know takes expensive vacations. You don't see their entire financial situation. You only see what they bought. But your brain registers one simple message. They're doing better than me. And suddenly, your current lifestyle feels like something you need to upgrade. That's how a salary increase can turn into a lifestyle increase. Not because someone forced you to spend more, but because your idea of what you should have changed. And modern life makes upgrading incredibly easy. You don't always need to save for months. You can finance it, subscribe to it, lease it, put it on a card. A large purchase becomes a small monthly payment. Instead of thinking, this costs $30,000, you think, it's only $500 a month. But financial commitments don't exist independently. A car payment, higher rent, insurance, subscriptions, restaurants, travel, convenience. Each one might feel manageable. Together, they can consume almost everything you earn. And that's how someone can make $100,000, yet have very little financial flexibility, because earning more isn't the same as keeping more. This is where the $100,000 trap becomes dangerous. The number starts feeling like a destination. You reach $100,000, and you're still not satisfied. So you start thinking about $120,000, then $150,000, then $200,000. And every new number promises the same thing. Once I get there, I'll finally feel comfortable. But if your lifestyle keeps rising alongside your income, the finish line keeps moving. You aren't necessarily becoming wealthier. You're simply maintaining a more expensive version of your life. So the question needs to change. Instead of asking, how much more do I need to earn? Ask, how much of what I already earn do I actually need? Because that answer determines something far more valuable than your lifestyle, your freedom. Here's where the entire $100,000 conversation gets misunderstood. We often treat income and wealth as if they're the same thing. They're not. Income is what comes in. Wealth is what you keep and what you build with it. Imagine person A earns $100,000 but spends almost everything maintaining their lifestyle. Person B earns $70,000 but consistently has money left over to save, reduce debt, and build assets. At first glance, person A looks better off, but the paycheck doesn't tell you the entire story. You can see the expensive car. You can't see the loan. You can see the beautiful house. You can't see the mortgage. You can see the vacation. You can't see what had to be sacrificed to pay for it. Someone can look incredibly successful, while their financial life is surprisingly fragile, and someone else can look completely ordinary, while quietly building a powerful financial position. They're not necessarily trying to look rich. They're building options, and that's what makes wealth different from income. Income can improve your lifestyle. Wealth can eventually give you independence from that lifestyle. Think about what happens when your paycheck is your only source of financial security. You have to keep working, not necessarily because you love the job, but because you need the income. Your employer controls your paycheck. Your monthly obligations depend on it. Your lifestyle depends on it. And suddenly, the salary that was supposed to make you feel free becomes something you can't afford to lose. That's when a high income can become a trap. You earn more, but become more dependent on maintaining that income. The goal shouldn't simply be to maximize your lifestyle. It should be to gradually reduce how much of your lifestyle depends on your next paycheck. And that's where assets become important. Investments, business ownership, property in the right circumstances, or even skills that increase your future earning power. The specific choice depends on your situation, but the principle is simple. Use part of today's income to create tomorrow's options. So Alex gets another raise, an extra $10,000. His first instinct is obvious. A better apartment, a newer car, more travel, more convenience. But what if he does something different? What if he keeps most of his current lifestyle and directs part of the increase toward his financial future? Maybe he builds savings, pays down expensive debt, invests, or develops a skill that can increase his future income. Now the raise has two jobs. Part of it improves today, part of it strengthens tomorrow. And if Alex repeats that, every time his income rises, something powerful happens. His salary grows, his skills grow, his assets grow, but his required lifestyle grows more slowly. Now the gap between what Alex earns and what Alex needs is getting wider. That's his financial margin, and margin is incredibly valuable. Because when you have margin, life becomes less fragile. An unexpected expense doesn't automatically become a crisis. A job loss doesn't immediately become an emergency. A career change becomes more realistic. An opportunity becomes easier to pursue. You can make decisions based on what you actually want, instead of what your bank account forces you to do. That's a completely different definition of being rich. Not having everything, having choices. And no, this doesn't mean you should never enjoy your money. You can travel. You can buy something you've wanted. You can upgrade your life. Money should improve your life. The question is whether every improvement has to become permanent. There's a huge difference between, I want to enjoy this raise, and, my lifestyle now requires every raise I receive. The first gives you a reward. The second creates dependence. And dependence is where the trap becomes dangerous. Because once your lifestyle requires your higher income, your paycheck stops being just income. It becomes infrastructure. Your home depends on it. Your car depends on it. Your habits depend on it. Your expectations depend on it. And suddenly, losing your job isn't simply losing a paycheck. It threatens an entire lifestyle you've built around that paycheck. That's why a high income can create a strange kind of pressure. You have more money, but you also have more to protect. The smartest use of a raise isn't necessarily making your life look more expensive. It's making your financial position stronger. Because eventually, the goal is to reach a point where your income creates options instead of obligations. Maybe that's enough savings to survive a period without work. Maybe it's investments growing in the background. Maybe it's skills valuable enough to change careers. Maybe it's simply knowing that one unexpected expense won't destroy your plans. These things aren't flashy. They don't make impressive social media posts. But they change how you feel about money. Because financial security is quiet. You don't always see it. You feel it. You feel it when an unexpected bill arrives. And you don't panic. You feel it when your company announces layoffs. And you know you have time. You feel it when you receive a job offer. And you can actually decide whether you want it. That's the kind of wealth a higher income can help create. And remember, your salary is tied to your time. You work. You get paid. Eventually, the paycheck stops. And that's why building assets matters. You're taking part of the value created by your work today and using it to create possibilities for tomorrow. It takes time. It's not guaranteed. And it isn't exciting every day. But that's exactly why it matters. You're slowly making your financial life less dependent on one paycheck. And eventually, the question changes. You stop asking, can I afford this? And start asking, does this help me build the life I actually want? That's a much more powerful question. Because you can afford a lot of things with a $100,000 salary, but you can't afford everything. Every financial decision is still a trade. More consumption today, or more flexibility tomorrow. More lifestyle, or more margin. More obligations, or more options. There isn't one perfect answer, but you should know which trade you're making. So if you're chasing that $100,000 salary right now, keep chasing it. A higher income can absolutely change your life. Just remember what it's supposed to do. It isn't supposed to give you a more expensive cage. It's supposed to give you more choices. Because the real milestone isn't the day your salary reaches 6 figures. It's the day you realize you don't need to spend like you're trying to prove that you made it. The next time you hear someone say, I make $100,000 a year, don't automatically think they must be rich. Ask a different question. How much of that income is actually creating freedom? Because the salary itself is only the beginning. You can use a higher income to build a more expensive lifestyle, or you can use it to build a more flexible life. You can turn raises into bigger payments, or into bigger possibilities. You can spend every extra dollar trying to look successful, or quietly use some of it to become financially stronger. And ultimately, nobody else can make that decision for you. Because wealth isn't about how impressive your income looks. It's about how much control that income gives you over your future. Maybe that's the real trap of the $100,000 salary. Not that you earn too little, but that you can earn more without ever becoming more free. So when your next raise arrives, don't immediately ask, what can I afford now? Pause. Ask, what can this increase make possible? Maybe it's a nicer life. Maybe it's less debt. Maybe it's investments. Maybe it's more time. Maybe it's peace of mind. Whatever your answer is, make it intentional. Because if you don't decide where the extra money goes, your lifestyle probably will. And once your lifestyle gets used to something, taking it away feels much harder than never having it in the first place. That's why protecting your margin matters. Not because money is the point, because freedom is. And that's what Alex eventually understands. He started at $50,000, then $70,000, then $100,000. At first, he thought the number itself would change his life. But eventually, he realized something. The salary wasn't the destination. It was leverage. Every increase gave him another opportunity to strengthen his financial position, and the more he separated his income from his lifestyle, the more control he gained. He didn't need to become extremely wealthy overnight. He simply needed his financial progress to move faster than his lifestyle. That's the lesson worth remembering. Because the difference between earning more and becoming wealthier can be surprisingly large. And it comes down to what happens in the space between those two things. Your margin, your choices, your habits, your assets, your time. That's where the real transformation happens. So celebrate when you hit $100,000. You earned it. Just don't let the number decide what your life has to cost. Let your income grow. Let your skills grow. Let your assets grow. But try to keep your lifestyle from growing at the same speed. Because the goal isn't to build the most expensive version of your life. It's to build a life you actually have the freedom to choose. And maybe that's what $100,000 should really buy you. Not a luxury car. Not a bigger house. Not a lifestyle designed to impress everyone else. But something far more valuable. Options. The option to say no. The option to change direction. The option to take a breath. The option to decide what happens next. Because making more money is only half the story. What you do with it is the part that can change your life. If this video made you look at your salary differently, give it a like. And if you want more simple, honest documentaries about money, wealth, and the psychology behind our financial decisions, subscribe to Finance Juice. We'll see you in the next one.